Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to the Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn young prodigy CJ Vogel and our own coach, from high school football coach at Vernon, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan, played college football at Abilene Christian, coach there as well, and was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. And now you can catch his work at ShipleyRanches.com. It's our own coach, Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Great. Had a little rain. Got a beautiful sunshine day out here in West Texas right now. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Went out to the farm this morning. The hay's growing, man. It's a good time.
Yeah, see, I think people forget that Coach ain't faking it. I know a lot of people have been watching Yellowstone lately, so y'all like to fake it like y'all out there ranching and doing stuff. But now Coach ain't faking it, man. It's a lifestyle.
No, in fact, I got a horse a little too hot for me. I had to send him off to get a little tune-up done on him, because my 64-year-old butt ain't going to go on the ground very easily. So I had to send him off, get worked on. I got 3 other ones that are my grandkids. They're 20, 20, and 22 years old. Perfect for grandkids. They don't want to lope and they won't lope. They're just going to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Different generation, Coach. It's a different generation. Yeah.
They're retired. So
you said you ain't gonna tame that. You ain't gonna tame that wild colt. You got that at your age. You say it's dangerous at your age.
No. He's not a colt. He's 10 years old. I haven't had him long. He just been turned out a while, and I've ridden him a few times. And I'm like, I need to send this big boy off. He's tuned up a little bit. He's a little more.
What happened if they can't be tamed?
Well, then I won't keep feeding them.
What do you mean? You just like, well, that's a punishment that you just don't feed them? Are they food motivated?
No. I'll sell him. I'm not. I will never not feed him. I'm just saying he'll get off my feed bill by way of selling him to somebody else.
Okay, I got you. All right. I'm learning something new every day. I don't know a lot about cowboy. I don't know a lot about it. See what I'm saying? That's why I learned from Coach. Coach knows a lot about football, knows a lot about ranching and cowboy too. So we appreciate Coach on the show. He's a Renaissance man. All right. Thank you guys for joining us, no matter where you're joining us from. We really appreciate you guys joining us for the Winning Drive. Got a lot of different topics we'll dive into. It may be way too early, but I told you guys multiple times I am a bit of a mock draft slut. I'll look at any mock drafts. So there are already 2026 mock drafts out, and Longhorns are getting a lot of love. So we'll dive into a couple of those coming up on the show. Also, there is an interesting, I would say it's really kind of, I would say it's a research study kind of being done by a data analyst, maybe a graphic designer online. And he's actually looked at the longest streaks, active draft streaks at every position. Turns out the Longhorns are because they've had the most players drafted in the last 2 years, they're one of the recurring teams that you're seeing when you're tallying up the longest draft streaks. So it's interesting research. I think it's pretty cool. So we'll bring that up and kind of talk about Sark and really the culture change that he has brought to the Texas, not only program, but specifically on the offensive side of the ball, because that's where we're starting to see these trends show up in Texas, showing up with these draft streaks. So we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on as well. We'll talk about the Longhorns schedule because the Longhorns got some big time road games next season. And based on some research, the Longhorns are going to be doing a lot of traveling this upcoming season. So we'll get into how that, them being away from DKR a lot and also playing some of their most challenging games on the road, how that could really be, something for a young team can be a bit of a challenge, because Texas has been pretty good actually away from DKR the last couple of years, been good periods. But specifically that will show up this year. That'll be a huge factor. So we'll dive into those topics. But of course, you guys drive the winning drive. Whatever direction you want to go, that's where we'll go. Throw out your questions, comments, and we'll try to address as many of them as we can. Super chats jump to the front of the line, and you can interrupt the show at any time. Just throw out there a super chat, and we'll dive into that topic. All right. First thing I want to get into, guys, is the mock drafts that are out. I don't know if you guys have paid any attention to them. I'll give them a legitimate one some credit here. Pro Football Focus came out with a mock draft for 2026. All right. So they're way out there. So I'm not saying I think any of these are, legitimate and we should take them seriously. Not at all. It's more to spark discourse and conversation. But once again, it seems like some of these kind of broad, big time national platforms aren't doing the research, at least that we know, because Pro Football Focus had their 2026 mock draft. They got Arch Manning going number 2. They have, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. They got him going number 12. They got Anthony Hill going number 6 overall, I believe, and he's going to the Carolina Panthers. Particularly, it doesn't really matter who they're going to and all that kind of stuff. I'm just bringing up the fact that where these guys are, they're perceived nationally now. That's kind of the conversation I want to have. Also, Malik Muhammad's getting a lot of love in these early 2026 mock drafts. I believe Malik Muhammad is 23. He's going to the 23rd overall. He's going to the Chargers. I saw another mock draft. I believe. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. And there's another mock draft that came out probably maybe last week. CBS Sports actually had that mock draft, and in that mock draft, you also had Arch Manning going. I believe Anthony Hill and Arch Manning were going top 5. Anthony Hill and Arch Manning going top 5 in that CBS Sports mock draft. So my point is I would have a couple of conversations. I believe Malik Muhammad was getting some love in that mock draft as well. The discussion I want to have is about, number one, Arch Manning, because it seems like all of the mock drafts for way too early 2026 mock drafts have Arch Manning in them. I think, number one, that's for clicks, because Arch Manning will get you clicks. But also, I looked at the 33rd, and Matthew, could you pull up that 33rd? Their NFL website, and they obviously talk a lot of NFL, but they had their odds with a number 1 overall pick for 2026, and none other than Arch Manning. Now, is this all just clickbait stuff, or are they anticipating? Thank you very much, Matthew. Are they anticipating Arch Manning actually playing that good that he will have no choice but to consider the NFL? Or is it that they just are unaware that the family has stated multiple times, and the trend of the family is that he will be a multiple year starter? So which one is it? There's got to be one of them. Because like I said, if they're doing the research, you would think that they go, no. He wants to be a multiple year starter. Or this is clickbait, and they're like, hey, man, putting the Manning in my mock draft is always going to give me some more clicks. That's good. More conversation.
Probably a bit of both, Rod. I mean, more than anything, I think it's the assumption that because he's draft eligible, he will go, right? And that's not the case for Arch specifically, but could be for other quarterbacks in this class. And I think it's also the expectation that Arch does live up to that 5-star pedigree. You talk about the Sarkisian offense and whether or not you got, all conference talent, you're going to put up all conference production at each spot, right? Just had a 1,000-yard rusher. You just had a tight end set all sorts of records. You had almost 1,000-yard receiver. Should Matthew Golden have stayed healthy for that Ohio State game, he likely reaches that mark. And then you've got, what should be pretty good offensive linemen in front of you. So the pieces should be there. You should be able to put up a pretty good, statistical stat line. On top of that, you should be playing some big games in the SEC. Everything should set up for Arch Manning to be at the top of the 2026 NFL draft. The issue is probably won't be there, right? And why not? Because the family, they want to take this very slowly, do their due diligence in college, make sure that they progress, develop, go through, what Steve Sarkisian and AJ Milby can, evolve him into essentially. And then that's what sets up for 2027. I actually like what Matt Miller put out. So look, I don't have him on any of my mock drafts because I'm expecting 2027. And it wouldn't surprise me if he comes out in 2028, which that might be a little bit of a stretch, but of course he does have 3 years to play here at Texas. Will he play all 3? I doubt it, right? I think he does play 2, but it would be great. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of just the assumption, maybe a blind, turn of the head in terms of what the expectation is for Arch for these clicks and for these talking points. But right now, I think it absolutely is just kind of, hey, look at this, Arch Manning, number one,
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to go back and look at what this mock draft did 1 year ago, right now.
Too.
And how accurate that was. To me, you got double clickbait here. First of all, as you mentioned a while ago, you put out good things on Texas, you're going to get lots of clicks because there's lots of people following the Longhorns. And then you couple with that a Manning on there, you're going to get a lot more clicks. So that's why you're always going to see him at the top or near the top until he proves he's not worthy of it, because that's, at this point, really, what are they? They're looking for clicks. That's all they're doing. There's not a whole lot of research that can go into this because there's not a lot that you can research on somebody.
Coach, I always look at these far too early mock drafts anyway and think, oh, whoever wrote this probably just took the familiar names that they knew, whether they're, All-American guys, all-conference guys, and just said, yeah, I know that name. Folks will agree with this, and just kind of scattered them throughout 32 different picks. It's a total crapshoot, right? This was, something where about this time last year, you had Carson Beck being the number one pick, and you had Quinn Ewers going top 5. And, well, Carson Beck got basically ran out of Georgia, and now was at Miami, and Quinn Ewers went in the 7th round. So it's just, who's a big name that's returning that we can put out here, and it would make sense to be a justifiable reason to go this early in the big draft.
Yeah. No, I will say that the Matt Miller comment, I'm glad you brought that up, because it does seem like 2027 is trending toward being potentially an iconic all-time great draft. Because if you look at college football right now, a lot of your best returning players are like sophomore, like true sophomores.
Yeah.
Which is something that's kind of rare. You don't see that. Your Colin Simmons of the world, your Dylan Stewarts of the world. Hell, I'll even throw, because I saw this comment from Max Chadwick. He's a Pro Football Focus analyst, and he said that their college football positional rankings, there have been since 2020 8 players who've been top player at their position returning their true sophomore season, and 3 of them are this season.
Wow.
Jeremiah Smith is that, Colin Simmons, and Leonard Moore. And then but the guys, there's some guys behind them that are really good, right? We got some at Texas that Ryan Wingo is trending toward being on that. He's really, really damn good. Arch Manning's trending toward coming out in that draft, and he's really good. That 2027 draft, because I'm with you, CJ. I don't want Arch here for 3 years. Hell no. That means something went wrong. It's like, no. The 1 year, I'm like, I'd like to have him for more than 1 year. I don't want him for 3 years. 3 years, something must have went wrong. 2 years seems just right. It's like that 3 Bears story. I don't want it. I don't want 1. I don't want 3. I want 2 seems just right. All right. So that's what I want from Arch. I want to get those 2 years. But it does seem like 2027 is going to be a freaky good draft. Like it is. Because you have Ryan. What's that?
Ryan Williams. Alabama.
Yep.
Dylan Stewart at South Carolina. Rod, DJ Lagway at Florida. You're going to be looking at a stacked draft in 27, 100%. That again, 26 deserves its flowers, and I hope that Texas puts out another strong year. But I can't help but look at what might be. You called it iconic. It might be. I'm going to throw the L word on that, Rod. It could be a legendary draft when it's Arch, Lagway, Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, Ryan Williams, Ryan Wingo.
Coleman's another yellow good player. Like it just seems like, I'm with you. It seems like, and that's not even including the guys that are going to just blow up out of nowhere.
Could be a Trevor Goosby year too.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah,
Did you see that 360 dunk he did, by the way?
I did, yeah.
Man, I'm telling you. And listen, I will say Tony Hills, he did say it. He said it's your tackles going to be more athletic than they were in the Cam Williams, Kelvin Banks years. Now, he didn't say they were going to be better because nobody really can predict better. And Kelvin Banks just got drafted in top 10. So, hard to be better than that as a tackle. But he did say they'd be more athletic. I don't know. Could Cam Williams and Kelvin Banks dunk, CJ? Could they do a 360? Was it 360 he did out there?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
I don't know about that. I saw Sean Rogers dunk one time and it freaked me out. I never seen a human being that big, jump and dunk before. And it was just freaky and crazy. All happens there at Gregory Gym, I'm sure. So there you go. Listen, I know, of course, they got us because if it is clickbait, then we just talked about it. But I just saw so many of them. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Boom. Big man. Yep.
Yeah. Rod, I told the story a few live streams ago, but we were at the facility with a few recruits, waiting for their visits to wrap up. And Trevor walked out of the facility and, as he does, just tossed a little hello, was on his way. And I go, hey, Trevor, do you think you can still dunk? And he looked at me like I asked the most egregious question anyone's ever asked before. And he turns around and goes, of course I could still dunk. And hey, evidenced by that. But it was pretty darn funny to see the reaction to that. Otherwise, I was just been like, yeah, I know you're athletic. I know you play basketball.
Yeah.
7 now, 315. You don't see guys like that get up that easily. He makes it look really easy.
That's what I would love to. That's a good discussion. Which era of Texas football players would have won the pickup game? Had the best pickup basketball games? Because I know our guys were really good at it, but this group, a lot of these guys are dual sport athletes that hooped. I mean, Arch. I remember Trevor Gooseby talking about when he plays with Arch. Like they go play pickup games, and he's overprotective even on the basketball court of Arch. Like, hey man, stay off my quarterback. And it's like, well, right now he's the point guard, but we get it.
He's driving in the paint.
It's like, hey man, you can't. Hey, I got to rough him up a little bit. He wants to come in here. So, but it's interesting. I wonder because this group can hoop. They got some hoopers. Trevor Gooseby's one of them dudes, man. He loves
AJ Lacey.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got because I think Sark is recruiting more dual sport athletes. We talked about that. Like that's something that appeals to him. I don't know if it appealed as much to Mac. I'm sure Mac had his own theory on it, and Mac was amazing. But I don't know how much that appealed to him. And Sarkis openly said that that's one of his top data points in evaluating athletes coming in, guys who play multiple sports. So the more and more that I see and hear Trevor Gooseby, I'm becoming a huge fan of him. I got a chance to interview him at Third Longhorn, but even seeing him kind of open up now, try to becoming a leader of the offensive line. I think the kid, he's a star. And then hearing that he was playing I think he was playing center and D line in 9th grade. That's what we found out too, talking to one of the old 2 D line coaches. Trevor Gooseby is a pretty amazing story, and concerning what he did last year. So, all right, let's get to another topic I want to address. And Matthew, could you have the highlight, the graphics ready for the active draft streaks? Because I want to get into this a little bit because it's really interesting, and I got to give Sark a lot of credit. Here, before we do that, though, let me thank our first sponsor of the evening before we dive into this. Let's thank our friends over at Von Lane, ladies. To another, especially in Texas, going to Houston or Dallas or San Antonio or the great city of Austin. And like always, it's a toss-up. All right. Do you deal with the airport chaos, hope your flight isn't delayed, or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic jams and just burning an entire day on the road? Now, there's a third option, and it's a much better option, better in every way. As a matter of fact, I can attest to that because I've taken the Von Lane to Houston. I've taken it to DFW. It is the only way to travel between major Texas cities. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. All right. You settle into a plush leather seat. If you prefer, you got a hot towel, pillow, and blanket at arm's reach. Your attendant offers complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, you get a full meal with our friends over at Von Lane. If you need to relax, you can just lean back and enjoy the ride. If you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. And while you're unplugging or powering through, the Von Lane team is monitoring traffic in real time, using smarter routes and efficient detours to keep your trip smooth and on schedule. And now's the perfect time to plan your fall travel. Booking is open through September, so whether you're headed to a college football game, a weekend getaway, or a business trip that needs to be done right, Von Lane makes the journey part of the reward. Von Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and in the Southeast, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis. Visit vonlane.com and use the code OTF25 to save $20 off your first ride with Von Lane. Von Lane, elevated regional bus transportation with VonLane.com. Thank you very much to Von Lane for sponsoring the winning drive. We appreciate them. And I do personally recommend Von Lane. I've actually taken it to Houston. That's usually, I've taken it several times to go visit family, taking it to DFW for business and other reasons to DFW. So it's great. Trust me, I can tell you right now, it's honestly the best way to travel between major Texas cities. So we appreciate their support of On Texas Football. All right.
Hey, Rod, real quick. I want to bring this up from David Keith Williams while we were talking about, dual sport guys.
Yeah.
Texas may have a lot of football players that are very good at basketball, but if they get Jaylen Lot in the 2026 recruiting class, they could have a world-class high jumper on the football team. Absolutely right. He was down in Austin today for the Texas State UIL track meet this morning, finished second in the state in the high jump. So 2 straight years, Jaylen Lot ended up getting, medaling in the state final for the high jump in the 4A classification.
Man.
Pretty darn good. It looks like he also got silver in the long jump. So he ended up winning that last year. He jumped 7 feet, cleared that already in the high jump this spring. Texas very much after his recruitment currently as a wide receiver now. Don't forget that. But a heck of an athlete right now. And, of course, his father in the Hall of Honor for what he was able to accomplish as a Longhorn back in the day.
Oh, so he's being recruited as a wide receiver? Because I know he plays both.
Yeah.
But he wants to play wide receiver, don't he?
Flipped it on over, Rod. So he was a defensive back. It was, Coach Orfe, Coach Aquina taking over the job. But when you look at Ohio State, Oregon, LSU, all recruiting on the wide receiver side of things, hey, it makes total sense to me. Go get the freaky athlete and let him go jump and leap for all these passes from whoever it might be. But freaky athlete, probably one of my favorites in this class.
Man. Okay, Coach, let me ask you. Freaky athleticism applies better at wide receiver or corner. You got a freaky athlete, and you had your pick to play him at corner or wide receiver. What do you think it helps you the most? Is it depending on the circumstance or what?
Yeah, I think Ramas Taylor is one of the freakiest athletes I've ever seen, and I think he could have played either side of the ball. Yeah. I saw him play in a little alumni game at Temple. Some video of him. We follow each other. He used to hang out when I was head coach at Belton some. And I think he dunked like 4 times in this game. The dude's almost 40 years old, and he's still bringing it. I'm talking about he is a man among boys. He's probably the freakiest one I've ever seen. But, the offensive side of me says, yeah, you need a playmaker at offense, Yeah. But the coach, the winning coach is going to say, okay, it don't matter if you can't stop him, So if he's good enough, you can play him both ways. That was able to work out for Hunter, okay. And then, but I'd major if all things are equal. I'd say put him at a shutdown corner, man. Put him on their best guy, shut him down, and because it's easier for Texas at this point to recruit playmakers on offense. It's harder on defense. Yeah. But it's still, to me, it's going to kind of come down to what he wants to play. What is his true desire? What does he see himself excelling in, offense or defense? And that's if you got him on defense and his heart's really on offense, then how long do you ride that horse? No,
that's a great point, Coach. You're right. And Nick Sabin talked about this. He said it's tough to get the great athletes who are deciding between DB and wide receiver to play DB. He always tells the story about Trevon Diggs and Trevon Diggs crying when he told him, hey, you playing defense, you can't play offense anymore. He cried and ended up becoming an all-pro. And that's a GOAT telling you, hey, man, I'm telling you, you going to be great at this. And yet guys want to play offense. And I've talked to a couple of DB coaches and like guys who do individual DB training, and they say the same thing. They're like, man, these guys want to be the 3rd, 4th wide receiver. I'm like, man, come be my number 1 corner.
Yeah,
you got a shot to hit the league same way. I mean, but it's something about the football. Everybody wants to be on offense. That's the ladies love offense, and they get all the praise. Fantasy football, ain't no defense. They didn't talk about no defenders on fantasy football. No, man. And then you talk about wide receivers, and those are the stars. And so and money wise, I will say that your money wise wide receiver behind quarterback is based on the value of the NFL in terms of the average annual salary, the wide receivers are the second highest paid position now behind the quarterback. So the guys making the big bucks. It's like wide receivers and edge rushers are like right there fighting it out. So I do get that too. But
also, if you look at our roster, who are you going to take off the field offensively to put him on the field? Okay. Conversely, on defense, who are you taking off the field? My point is there's a lot more GoDaddies on that offensive room than there are in that defensive room at his level.
Yep.
You know, so you're not going to have as big a drop off if somebody takes his place on offense as you do if somebody's going to take his place on defense. So I think you're utilizing your overall roster better that way. Get that room full of offensive playmaking wide receivers we have. Get them cats on the field.
Yeah. I always like telling a story specifically for Jaylen Lot going to a Lovejoy spring practice the spring of his freshman year, so going into a sophomore year, and just seeing him at cornerback lined up against the Dalen McCutcheon, Parker Livingstone, Kyle Parker, who Texas recruited, is now at LSU, Jackson Lavender at SMU. That wide receiver room was pretty loaded at the time, and each time it was just like, all right, Jaylen, let's see what you got. And to crack the lineup at wide receiver as well as a youngster with those guys ahead of him, I mean, that's the type of athlete and football player he is. Yeah.
And that I'm sure he's got great high point ability. I mean, for the football. Will he be a dual sport athlete if he comes to Texas? Will he try to run track, you think?
I don't know if that conversation's been had.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I think football will be his main focus.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I wonder if he'll try. I mean, obviously, Jonah Williams has got everybody thinking about how it's easy to be a two-sport athlete transitioning, but we know you got to be obviously elite of the elite. I think Jaylen Lot might fall into that category, though. That's why I'm asking the question. All right, let's get to the active draft streaks that I wanted to dive into here. And shout out to, I'll make sure to give him credit, D Sports, I believe it is, who's throwing these out. Let's throw out the running backs first, because this is where Texas is setting the standard. They are the gold standard right now. And this is at DEEG Sports, at D Sports. And his research says that if you look at active draft streaks, the Longhorns at the running back position after the Jaden Blue draft pick going to the Dallas Cowboys, that right now the Longhorns have the longest active draft streak of running backs in all of college football. I guess the first question is, will it continue? Does it seem like it? Will it continue? Will we get 4 straight years of a running back drafted at the University of Texas?
It's tough. It's tough. That either means CJ Baxter came back, lit the world on fire, and is ready to go after the ACL tear, or hey, Trey Wisner said, hey, I'm put together 2 consecutive really strong seasons, and I'm ready to hit the NFL. Right now, I don't know which one's more likely. I think Trey Wisner is going to have a good year, but is the volume there to show that you can be an NFL quality back 2 years in a row, right? I think last year he obviously stepped up to the challenge. Will that same, volume share be there this year with CJ Baxter set to return, as well as a Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark going into year 2, James Simon emerging? We'll see. I kind of lean no. I kind of lean no right now.
Okay. Coach?
I lean a big yes for me.
Okay. Yeah. I like it.
Big yes. What Trey rushed, he rushed over 1,000 yards this year. You can't tell me that guy's not going to get drafted if he pulls the same type. I don't know if he can pull the same season off if he's splitting reps with CJ. But 1,000-yard rusher as a junior. Show me a guy in the SEC that rushed 1,000 yards as a junior that didn't get drafted as a senior. I mean, probably not going to find one unless he had just a horrific injury or something.
Yeah, and Coach, he did that as a sophomore going into a junior, so even a year younger.
Yeah, that's true.
I will actually, Coach, I might do some research on that. That's actually
a good question.
I never thought about that. That's a good question, actually. That right there is listen, in a day and age where the running back position overall has been devalued. Sark talks about the running back position is the most underutilized position in the passing game. I think one of the things the NFL loves about Texas running backs is the added value you get in the passing game with these guys, because Sark showcases that. Number one, they're all great backs running the football, but he showcases their ability to be weapons in the passing game too. And I think that's a big part of it. You get a lot of added value, even with a guy like Keenan Robinson, not necessarily a great runner, but you get added value with him as a special teams guy. If I'm going to bring running backs on and prioritize them, and you're talking about running backs who were drafted relatively high for the Longhorns here, the first running back off the board in back-to-back years, I think they got to bring something else to the table. And I think Sark is able to weaponize and kind of showcase the overall skill set of the running back. So he's done a good job of that. I mean, there's no doubt. So that we'll see if that streak continues. All right, so let's go to wide receivers next. So he also did the active wide receiver streaks for the NFL draft, and the Longhorns are also well represented among the wide receivers. And he brings up an interesting factoid too about the Texas wide receivers. And here you see the Longhorns 2 straight years with a wide receiver drafted. But in terms of numbers, because of that great draft class they had a couple of years ago, the Longhorns 4 wide receivers drafted in the last 2 years. Ohio State, of course, which Ohio State, LSU probably have claimed to be considered wide receiver U in a lot of circles. They've had 5 in the last 4 years. So in terms of the numbers, I mean, Sark is his type of wide receiver, his preference, and I've talked about this too. The NFL likes the way he uses his wide receivers, but they also like his preference of wide receiver coach. Like that is no doubt about that. Like wide receivers that he's brought in, even via the transfer portal, they like the way he highlights and uses those guys in his offense.
Looking at that graphic too, Rod, I mean, Texas probably should be at 5 wide receivers.
They should. They should.
Bond, stays out of trouble. Hey, you're looking at a 5th wide receiver taken, probably another one taken in the top 100 picks as well.
Yeah.
I think DeAndre Moore is going to be the only wide receiver eligible this year, and I think he gets drafted. So I think the streak continues, right? Because Ryan Wingo, Parker Livingstone, Emmett Mosley going to be true sophomores, and then of course the fleet of freshmen coming in. You don't have many older guys in that room this year. But I do think DeAndre Moore is going to have a big time year, and I think he'll test well. So that would be my pick. 5 in 3 years after next year. Should it be more? I think Texas would have a heck of a run there. And then, of course, hey, who knows who comes out that 2027 draft, as we've talked about. Emmett Mosley, another name that you could probably file away and say, yeah, would go pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, Texas actually, Coach, you know a lot about wide receivers, but in terms of, producing NFL wide receivers, they might be on, if CJ's right, they might be on the best run they've had.
Probably ever.
Yeah.
Probably ever. Yeah. Because, I mean, when we had Roy and BJ Sloan, that was the best group that Texas had probably ever had in the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, you don't see it. You saw Jordan and Quan. You had 2 guys. Quan didn't even get drafted. Jordan didn't get drafted till the 3rd round. But we are in the heyday. Yeah. We're in our heyday of wide receivers, in my opinion. Now, I don't know what it looks like going back, into the 60s and, maybe even 70s. But, I mean, when you run the wishbone, you're probably not having a lot of receivers taken. So I think it's pretty safe to say we're in the heyday of our wide receiver reaching legendary status over the last couple of years.
Yeah. He also points out here that Texas wide receivers in the 2024 NFL season, they combined for 1,621 receiving yards and 147 receptions. And based on his research, both are the most by Texas receivers in a single season in the NFL ever. So to your point, Coach, they're probably in a golden era.
Yeah,
historic run of developing wide receivers. And it's because of the Sark offense. I mean, the truth is, Makovic brought the modern passing game to Texas. Texas wasn't even a modernized passing game until Makovic came. So kind of a little bit behind the times to coach's point. All right. So wide receiver streak, pretty good. You're there. You got 2 in a row. CJ predicts 3 in a row. Let's pull up the tight ends because tight end, actually, Texas has a pretty good streak going as well. 2 straight years, Texas has had a tight end drafted into the NFL. And that puts them second behind some of the best tight end, really kind of tight end use, if you will, in college football, right? Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, Texas right there. And Sark has said that tight end is the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. And when he first said that, Coach, I laughed at him. And I was like, that sounds like coach speak. I mean, is that real? Is that true? I will admit, the last couple of years, he's proven that to be the case. It's the fusion of the spread ideology and his pro philosophy. The tight end is the position that fuses it together for him. And he's really now through 2 different skill sets, 2 different type of tight ends, he's shown that, if you're a Texas tight end, you will be maximized. He's going to maximize your talent. That's why they got Jack Injuries in here. So
yeah,
that's impressive because for a while, tight end was an endangered species on the 40 acres.
Yes, it was. I'll tell you another thing. Look at the neck sizes on those Iowa, Penn State, and Michigan compared to ours. I mean, those are some big daddies now. I'm telling you.
It's true.
So, but but like you said, it's more of a hybrid, and that's what the NFL's becoming as well. It's more of a hybrid to mesh the 2 philosophies together, and nobody, I think, has done it better than Sark.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Iowa, nobody's better at producing tight ends than Iowa, right? Iowa's tight ends are crazy what they got going on up there.
Penn State's doing a good job. Stanford's always had, some pretty solid tight ends.
Yeah,
I remember Wisconsin always having some big ones.
Yeah,
Wisconsin got some good ones too. Yeah, for Texas, I think that was a while where Texas was producing really good tight ends. I mean, they had a little run there in their heyday with Texas starting, Bo Scaife and of course David Thomas, Jermichael Finley. But something happened. There was like a disconnect when Texas went through its offensive identity crisis. Among other positions, the tight end position kind of went, to the wayside. I think now that Sark has a clearly defined identity offensively, you see the tight end is thriving in Sark's offense. Okay, there you go. So that's the tight end streak. I would just say this because that's the offensive side of the ball, and we'll see. I think Texas has had tackles drafted in 2 straight years too, offensive tackles. So we'll see if he does offensive lineman. I don't know if he's going to do that or not. My point is this though: Sark has clearly changed the offensive culture at Texas. I mean, that's basically what you see on display there. And I think he's done it ultimately in 2 different ways with the talent, number 1, 2. But he came in with a vision for the offense. Remember, he was like speed on the outside, size on the inside. I want, massive big humans inside. I want speed on the outside. And I think that because he kind of simplified the vision in terms of the guys he wanted to recruit to it, the type of players, the skill sets he wanted to recruit to it. Well, Sark's got his offense. It's his calling card. He's already got, that's his, as an offensive mind, right? That's his system. Like he has an offensive system, but I do think he has kind of perfected and maybe over time, the types of players who would thrive in the system. He's kind of figured that out. And the interesting thing is a lot of those guys he inherited at Texas, he brought in some guys via the transfer portal. We saw that, but he was able to maximize the guys he inherited. I can't wait to see what the guys he started to recruit specifically to assist. That's what we're on now. That's what we're starting to embark on now, guys. It's like, we're done with the inherited guys. He had to show us he could maximize their talent, right? And develop their talent. Now these are guys that you handpicked from across the country.
Yeah. Well, the last 2 guys, you still talking about tight end, talking about tackles?
I'm talking about all around. Right? All the different positions. Like now he's specific. Now
because the last 2 tight ends were homegrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, but certainly not at receiver and not at, defensive line, things like that.
Yep, no doubt. No, the tight ends he's brought in via the transfer portal haven't worked out.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part about it. They haven't worked out. I think Jack Andrews is going to be different, but Jaleel Billingsley and Amari Nyblack, those didn't work out. Maybe that's a Bama thing. I think Jack Andrews is going to be different. I think he's more compatible, in my opinion, with Sark's system. He's shown that in his couple years. I think he is going to be kind of I say breakout star. He's already been a damn good player, but I think he's going to be really good in Sark's system. And just go look at the last two tight ends. You can almost predict what Jack Andrews' targets are going to be. You pretty much, it's going to be around 70 some targets, CJ, somewhere around there. You pretty much can predict it based on the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would expect it to be a little less than what, Jatavian Sanders and Gunnar Helm averaged with Quinn. Again, I think Quinn at times got a little, trigger happy when it came to the check down, and obviously he had a great rapport with Gunnar Helm last year. I do think you're going to see more vertical shots in this offense, so more targets spread out amongst those wide receivers. But for Jack Andrews, 1,000 yards over the last 2 seasons, he puts up a 500-yard season, good season for a tight end. That's 1,500 in 3 years. You're getting drafted 100% with that production, right? You don't see many tight ends putting up those type of numbers, and to do that at 2 different schools, I think would be a big green flag for him. I don't think there's any question how impactful he will be in the passing game. My question is, can he move bodies next to a Trevor Gooseby or a Brandon Baker on the opposite side of the ball? That's going to be really interesting to me, and I can't wait to see how that evolves and helps this running game as well when he gets to campus in the summer.
I'm hoping actually you'll get more balance. And I've said this before in the tight end, distribution, like target distribution this year. Because it's been pretty lopsided the last couple of years. Like it was all JT for 2 years. Gunnar Helm got very little target distribution for 2 years. Then it was all Gunnar Helm, and then you have the second tight end with very little target distribution. And I'm hoping now you'll get a little bit more balance. It won't be so lopsided that whoever your number one passing threat is at the tight end position, that they won't get 80+% of the targets, that you'll have more balance. Because Juan Davis I think he got 12 targets or something like that last year.
Felt like he got everyone.
But he didn't get a lot of targets. I would hope that now your 12 personnel teams would have to defend both of those. I think that's ultimately what Sark's goal is. All right, let's before we get back into some of the questions, and I got a couple other topics I want to ask guys about. Let's thank another one of our sponsors. Thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. Check them out for yourself. Folks, did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery, just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. One of my favorites. Actually had a member of the On Texas football family approach me at the Fan Fest down in the 40 acres to tell me how much they enjoyed Super Texan, and now it's one of their favorite wines that they enjoy with their significant other, and also not to mention that they also have it at your local specs. They have it at our local Central Market here in Austin. So the good word is getting out, not only to the fans, the family here at On Texas Football, but also to the good folks out there who appreciate great wine. And that's what my friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery, that's what they're all about. Not only do they produce some of the best premium wines on the market, they also are a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. And actually, we had a member of the On Texas Football family, another member, the family keeps growing, that actually told us they got engaged at Flat Creek Estate Winery. So no matter how special the occasion, our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery, they can accommodate any of the plans that you may have. So go check them out, flatcreekestate.com, and we really appreciate them for being a part of the On Texas Football family and sponsoring the winning drive here today. All right, let's get to some questions. How about this one from Ed B? $35 to $40 million roster. And Arrow Kid's comment says that $40 million is just collective, right? Doesn't include players' individual deals with companies. Okay, so this is for those who haven't heard. We talked about this yesterday, I believe. Kirk Bowles, who does work for Cron.com now, at Houston Chronicle, he came out with a story this past weekend, or maybe earlier this week, where he said, or he claimed, he had a source, of course, and Kirk Bowles does great work, that the current Texas roster, the value of it sits somewhere between $35 and $40 million. That's what he said the source claimed. Now, it did say, I will say this because I'm going to read it here verbatim. It said, with the addition of 10 football players out of the transfer portal and probably one or two more on the way, the budget for next season's Texas roster has grown as well. It currently sits somewhere between 35 and 40 million, which counts the likely revenue sharing allotment expected to be 20.5 million, as well as payouts through the Texas One Fund, a connected source told the Houston Chronicle. It said this also figures to be a one-time exorbitant expense because it says athletic director CDC and others have said the school plans to phase out its collective in favor of the revenue sharing via the house settlement and move to name, image, and likeness payouts through corporations. So he's saying, and by the way, I will say that Chip Brown has come out to dispute this report. I believe he said he got a source that says the thought, or at least the idea, that Texas has a $35 to $40 million roster is whacked, is what his source told him. So either way, I know both of those guys. Both those guys do great work. So hey, one source says this, another source says this. I actually think, to me, it did not surprise me. 35 to 40 million. I thought actually it seems realistic, especially right before the house settlement drops. Why not spend as much as you can spend now? Because at one point when the house settlement becomes a law of the land, we all expect there to be caps and more guardrails and regulations on what can be spent and what will be spent. So I wasn't shocked to hear that report. Like I said, it's being disputed, but to me, it didn't shock me at all. That was the number that was a source throughout there as a Kirk Bowles. But what are your thoughts about this, Coach? I haven't heard. I talked to CJ about her. What are your thoughts about the report that it could be a $35 to $40 million roster for Texas?
Yeah, I think Kirk and Chip have. I don't think they're looking at apples to apples. I don't think they're all looking at the same thing. I mean, if you figure it in the collective and you're figuring in the one fund and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think it's apples to apples. But if that is true, let's go. I mean, what do they say? We're Texas. I mean, but that's what I would expect. If there's anybody else bringing in more money than that, let's go get some more. I mean, do it while you can. And it's going to be really interesting because there's always going to be situations. Doesn't matter what rule comes up, just like NIL. It's not being used as they thought it would be used. They thought that whatever, Nike, would sign a kid and that kid would do commercials for Nike or, whatever, pick whatever business you want. But that's not what it's become. And I don't know if these kids are doing anything, other than playing football to earn that money. I guess they are doing some advertisements, but obviously my point is, it's that if they do cap it, then what ways everybody's going to be looking for a way to skirt that issue.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get back to outside sources giving players more money under the table because they've already kind of been used to allocating a certain amount to UT or whatever school. I just, people always try to beat the system. It doesn't matter. Man, I remember a time when I was in college, the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. Did y'all ever have to live through those days? If I go 55 miles an hour now, I mean, it feels like I am on a lawnmower, So I would go 62 because I always heard 7's a magic number. So then it went up to 65. So I went 72. Now at 75, I go 82. I mean, that's, people are just going to push the limits of everything they can. in a lot of aspects of their life, you know. And I just think if they cap it, that's fine, but watch out, because the snakes are going to come out and try to find another way to get part of that.
Yeah, that's good, Coach. Yeah, I can't describe it, but I love that. You're right about that too. It 5 to 7 miles over the speed limit. That we've been told that the police will allow that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In my experience, it does seem to be logical.
I haven't gotten a ticket in decades, by the way.
Keep using those sevens, Coach.
I say that I'm gonna get one this evening, but push the limit, man. 4th and 1. Let's go.
Yeah.
Row Left says, I hope you don't have a weed pen going 7 miles per hour over the speed limit, Coach.
I can safely say I don't even know what a weed pen is. I mean, I've never seen a weed you could write a letter with, so I'm out on that. I'm kidding. I can guess totally what it is, but I never heard of one.
That's good. No, I mean, like I said, I honestly, I kind of believe the 35 to 40 million. Maybe I'm being naive about it. You know, I mean, maybe I don't, because like I said, nobody knows for sure, because Texas won't let anybody know what those numbers are, by the way. And you won't know what individual players are making either. You just hear stuff behind the scenes. And I don't know. Like I said, when I heard it, I wasn't shocked. I was like, okay, yeah, sounds about right. Which probably says a lot about, you know, my perception of the program. I just know Texas has a lot of resources, a lot.
Well, they better produce. You remember what happened when that crazy number came out that A&M spent on their class?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that came back and really bit them in the butt big time. Whether it was true or not, whether that money was actually given out or not, to turn around and have the season that they had. So if it's going to be 35, 40 million, you better be in the Final Four every year.
Hey, Coach, that's why, as CB says, they're having a source off here. That I think that's why you got, even if it was true, Texas don't want people knowing that.
Yeah.
Even if it's right, I don't want people knowing it. You don't want people knowing what you spend on stuff. Like, that makes everybody uncomfortable. So I think Texas, just like you said, Coach, it's just bad optics. People knowing what you're spending on your roster, period. And I think Texas at this point, unless they get a salary cap and all that, but I think Texas like, no, let's dispute that. Even if it is true, the people are behind the burnt orange curtain are smart enough to know that ain't going to work out for us. It ain't going to be good for us for people to know that information. So so I think, you know, even if it could be, you know, something that is true or it could be false. So I'm not saying either way, but I do believe Texas would refute it if they could. And I think that's why they may leak out.
Well, and another negative thing is, you think, oh, recruits seeing that's good. No, that's bad, because they're going to come in and ask a crazy number because they know Texas spends a lot of money. So I'm going to go to Texas and get mine.
Yep.
Okay. And so, you know, there's some things you got to be careful for, I think.
Yeah. The two thoughts I have on this is, you know, this is probably what you could argue is Texas's most talented per player roster currently. And I know that sounds crazy because Texas over the last 2 years put up big time numbers, especially into the NFL Combine, NFL Draft, and in those regards. But look, you just signed the number 1 class in the country. You just backed it up with 2 back-to-back top 3 classes as well. And then you backed up a lot of that with some really impressive guys out of the portal. Yeah, it makes sense to me that Texas might be at its highest overall number in NIL coming into a season. I don't know if it's going to be in the 40s. You know, I do think that it would make a sense that if you saw the number, you'd sit there and go, oh, you know, that is a lot of money as we were expecting. But the other thing is, look, we've seen guys call Texas, visit Texas in the portal, say, hey, I'm pretty interested in catching passes from Arch Manning, or I'm pretty interested playing defensive line in front of Anthony Hill. Why? Because I know that's going to look better for me. But Texas, at the end of the day, has said, hey, you're a little bit too heavy for our price tag. Texas doesn't necessarily chase out of the portal the way that some schools do, or some might assume Texas does, right? So that's always been one thing for me that I've kind of tipped my cap to Sarkisian and Brandon Harris for is, hey, if there's a guy out of the portal, they know it immediately, and they kind of come to an agreement very early on. They meet that number, whatever it might be. But Texas, they don't normally spend more than, you know, the next competitor. I think there are other factors that go into kind of the attraction that is Texas, right? The university, the city, you know, post-graduation networking, whatever you want to call it, that you kind of get a discount. And that was kind of the instance with Nick Saban at Alabama. His kids were taking much less money when Nick Saban was still around to go to Tuscaloosa. Because why? They knew that they were going to go to the NFL in 3 years.
Yep.
That's kind of becoming the trend in Austin, whereas you're seeing some competitors, especially in the SEC, you start looking around at Auburn, you start looking at Ole Miss, who are flipping 25 to 30 roster spots per year out of the portal. How do you do that without spending a whole lot more money there? Well, you can't, right? So Texas isn't like Texas Tech right now in the portal, which I think is a good thing. Retains that chemistry, that culture. But beyond that, it helps you build from the high school ranks, which is what Sarkisian's always wanted to do, essentially. And that's where I think a lot of that stability is formed and moved upward as these guys get older and older.
Yeah. No, it is like I said, it's interesting conversation. All right. I know we got a couple of questions here, and I got a couple other topics. I know we're getting close to the end of the live stream. So if you got some more questions, please throw them out there. DKW, David Keith Williams, always has good stuff. Says Texas may have a lot of football players that are very good basketball players, but if they get Jaylen Lot in the 2026 recruiting class, they could have a world-class high jumper on the football team. I'm with you, DKW. I wonder if he'll be a two-sport athlete, actually. And I know he loves football, and that's what that's his first love. What's Jonah Williams' first love? Is it football, right? He's a football guy, first love?
Yeah. Otherwise, I think he'd be strictly baseball, probably would have gone in the draft.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know if the track coach, if he would be interested, but I don't know. I think Jaylen Lot I'd pursue being a two-sport athlete until I couldn't do it anymore, because it's just so cool. Like you're just doing something nobody else in the world can do. So few human beings can do that. Be a two-sport athlete at the college level. Now, when you need to focus on, your sport and you're thinking about going to professional level, that sounds like Travis Hunter. I mean, think about how elite you have to be as an athlete to be able to play two positions. They play both sides of the football, and he could do it, and he might be able to do it at the NFL level too. As long as we haven't seen anything like it. I think those opportunities in human beings are so rare. Man, you could do it. Do it. Playing two sports the next level. And your dad did it too?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't know. That's how I'm old school. I would do it. I would do it. Why not? But we'll see. All right. I like the idea of having more two-sport athletes at Texas. I just heard about that Clemson tight. You heard about that Clemson basketball player? Heard about this dude? 6'8". He said, I want to play football.
Yeah, never played before, right?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, exactly. He's actually a pretty good basketball player, too. Here, let me get his name. I got it here. But he actually wasn't a terrible basketball player, but apparently he's 6'8", and he's switching to college football. Ian Shiflin. If I mispronounce his name, I apologize. He said he's switching to college football. I don't know if he's switching permanently, but he was a forward for the Clemson basketball team. 6'8", 240. Basketball stats, averaging 12 points per game, 9 rebounds, and almost 3 assists. It ain't bad.
That's pretty solid.
He's actually a decent baskesketball player, but dude, Clemson, I'm not saying this guy's gonna put him over the top or anything. I don't know how the guy may end up riding the bench for all those, but they don't have a lot of weaknesses either. Clemson's loaded. I mean, Texas whipped them last year, but they're bringing back a strong squad. That was a veteran Texas team that whipped them last year, but they'll be a veteran team this year. All right?
A veteran Texas front offensive line versus an inexperienced Texas or Clemson front seven.
Yeah.
You look at that Clemson team this year, I think the strength of their team this year versus last year defensively is going to be completely flip-flopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew, for pulling that up. That's why Matthew.
Hey, if I'm going to go out and get another sport, it ain't going to be basketball. It's going to be a track and field guy, specifically a shot and discus guy. We had a guy when I was there with Herman. There was a guy who was an All-American shot discus guy. I'm not going to say his name, but he came to me and wanted to try out for football. And so anyway, he went through some drills and he didn't last very long. He did not last very long. It's not, and I mean, and those are, the shot and discus guys, they're known as being, the He-Man kind of guys, the basketball guys, sometimes they can be kind of prima donna. They don't want to get the hand in the ground, and do all that stuff. I'd like to find a great shot and discus guy because they have great hips, strong legs. They're explosive, you have to be explosive, except the shot, especially the shot putters. That's the kind of guy I'm going after, two-sport.
Yeah, I can only imagine, Coach. You put Ryan Krauser up there as a fullback and just bang, that would have been. Of course, he's
I didn't mention any
gold
names.
medal Olympian now, so he did all right.
Yeah, see? Yeah, put him at fullback like a Jim Harbaugh would do.
Oh, no doubt. That would have been a great idea. I didn't think about that.
Let him open up a hole or something. All right. Thank you, guys. We got one more question here, actually. CJ's for you from Cisco. CJ, did the spring transfers hit campus today?
No, I don't believe so. They should be getting in the back end of May, that first week of June, right in that timeline. That's normally where you'll see also the Coleman brothers getting to campus, Nick Townsend as well. That first week of June is where, you really start to transition into the 2025 season, right? And you get guys on campus. Coach, you could probably talk about this a little bit too. That first week, I know for a lot of these guys, you don't see it as much anymore with how many come in the semester. But that's move-in day for a lot of them. They move into Sandjack, they get the cameras out, they do the whole media stuff, and then that first week starts summer conditioning. Of course, for the Texas staff, that also means official visits. So it's getting to know the new guys that are arriving on campus, and also what will be this current recruiting class. But they should be coming in about a month.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Cisco, for the question. Good stuff there, CJ. All right. Before we move on, let's thank our final sponsor of today's program, our friends over at South Point Dodge. Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including great selection, but they also have that all-new 2025 Jeep Wrangler. Get the real deal today and drive away in the Jeep Wrangler, a vehicle built for adventure. Plus, right now at South Point Dodge, you get employee incentive pricing. Now, that's their really fancy way of saying that you get the employee discount. You pay what the employees pay right now at South Point Dodge. Now, that's the real deal. So no matter what you're looking for, brand new car, used car, maybe a trade-in car or truck, whatever you need, South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. So go check them out today. You can actually go check out their selection off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online, make it easy on yourself, and go check out their 600 vehicles that they have in stock at southpointdodge.com. Really appreciate them and their support of on Texas football. And don't forget about the employee discount that you get at southpointdodge.com right now. You get that employee incentive pricing, as they like to call it, but you get the employee discount. And nobody offering a better deal than South Point Dodge, the real deal today at southpointdodge.com. All right, let's get to, I got a couple of things I want to bring up here. And I know CJ actually was on the road. He's always working hard, trying to get eyes on future prospects for the Longhorns. And actually you were on the road. So I want to give CJ some time to talk about the prospect that he saw recently. But how about this? Because I saw it at hookem.com, I believe. They actually were doing some research about the amount of travel for each SEC team this upcoming football season. And based on their research, they're saying Texas will travel more than any other team in the SEC during the 2025 season. Over 9,000 miles traveling in the upcoming football season. And I really want to talk about the Longhorns playing big games on the road or away from DKR. I believe the last 2 years they're 12-4, if I'm not mistaken, away from DKR. Pretty good record, actually, really good. And thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that.
Hey, better get that Bond Lane booked.
Hey, boom. See, Coach is a natural. Damn it. I should have been able to think about that. We should have waited to get Bond Lane after this segment, and that would have been better. Coach, see, I screwed that up. I apologize to Bond Lane. But what do you guys thoughts about this being a younger team? They're not totally a young team, but a younger team with some of their key guys, being either their first-time starters like an Arch Manning or a Trevor Gooseby, or guys who, are true sophomores like Colin Simmons, having to play big games on the road. How much of a factor do we think Texas doing so much traveling and playing Georgia on the road, Ohio State on the road, playing some of those big games on the road, how much do we think that will be a factor in with this young, inexperienced team?
I think if there's ever a season to go play one of these big marquee road games week 1 or 2, it would be this year, because you don't have a veteran offensive line. You don't have a quarterback that's been there and done that per se, right? We saw a little bit of Arch. He only took about 3 snaps ever in a road game. So to go out there and get a test of it early, and especially in the college football playoff world now where one loss doesn't really kill your season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should Texas fall against Ohio State week 1, the defending champs, let's not forget, it doesn't do a whole lot big picture wise. Yeah, it's going to suck, right? It's not going to be fun on Twitter. It's probably not going to be fun on here. But it's going to set up much more favorably in my eyes to at least have gone on the road beforehand for when, your time against Kentucky comes, or you got to go play between the hedges in Athens, or you got to go to the swamp and play Florida, who's going to be really good again. And then in this year, in my eyes. So it's a great kind of test of what this season will entail. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to mean anything else beyond, those first 1 or 2 road games in terms of, all right, we know what it's like now. We've been there. We've done that. We've got a win under our belt. Does it really affect you anymore? I think Texas prides itself over the last few years, right? And going 12-1 or something like that on the road, wearing the icy whites, being road warriors. You get that first one under your belt for a young team, and I think everything just kind of evens out. That water smooths out pretty significantly after that.
I think the thing that Sark has learned, in my opinion, I may be way off base, but after we went up to Arkansas and got beat, and everybody was talking about, oh, watch out, that Arkansas environment, it's crazy up there. I mean, they hate us. You don't understand how much they hate us. Arkansas to us is just another team, but to them, we are their biggest rivals. And it just didn't seem like to me, for whatever reason, maybe the talent wasn't there, but we didn't seem like we were ready to play in that environment yet. But I really feel like now that this team has been built to play at their level, no matter where they go. And if you can do that, if you can go down to Kyle Field and win after so many years of not playing, and there will not be a more challenging environment to go into than they had to go into at Kyle Field last November. I mean, that's just, I'm not saying it's not going to be some tough places to play. There's going to be a lot of tough places to play, but there will be no higher energy than there was at Kyle Field last year, in my opinion. And so a lot of these guys, most of these guys got to experience that. And I think it's good, and it's going to say a whole lot about our football team, when we get into this season, how well we're doing in those big road games. And I predict we're going to do well. I really think we do. I think this team may be young in some areas, but it's a seasoned locker room, in my opinion. It's a seasoned team, and they seem to be very businesslike and mature and cohesive. And that's what you've got to have, because it's us against everybody else. When you go into Georgia, you go into the swamp, it's us against everybody else, and the culture that has been built, I think will lend itself to some real successful road trips.
Yeah, that's what the icy whites are all about. So you have Ohio State, going to Oklahoma. I mean, obviously going to Dallas to play Oklahoma, you're away from DK. I always count that as a road trip, even though sometimes you're the home team, whatever. You got to go to Georgia. You got to go to Florida, right? Got to go to Swamp. Are those the biggest road games? The 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should be, if DJ Lagway is healthy. I mean, that Florida game should be a tough game tough out for the Longhorns. I think they'll win it, but it still should be a tough out for them. And then going to Gainesville. I mean, that's just.
I'm kind of workshopping the take right now. I'm not ready to unveil it in terms of difficulty going on the road. Which game is going to be the toughest? Maybe in a week, Rod. Maybe I need to go back in, but I think that Florida game is going to be really darn tough.
Yeah.
Still, work in progress for this take. I'll unveil it a little bit later.
I like it. Yeah. CCJ's already doing some rabbit holing, previewing the 2025 season. All right. Speaking of CJ doing hard work for you guys, you also got on the road to see a future prospect way out there. for the Longhorns. Where did you go and what did you see?
Yeah, early morning this morning, fought the traffic down I-35, but made the trip to San Antonio. I wanted to see 2027 offensive lineman Caden Scott in action. We got some tape here. Thank you, Matthew. Playing left tackle here, number 75, I believe. 6'7", 290 pounds, 295 pounds. But that's what offensive linemen should look like going into their age 16 season, right? That's a physically impressive guy. Obviously still growing into his body. He's still not the smoothest in terms of his movement. Of course, his pass sets could improve, but physical guy, when he gets his hands on you, you don't see guys moving very often. But Texas hosted him for an unofficial visit earlier in the month of April. He's got 15 offers right now. He's been to Texas A&M several times. Texas certainly one that he likes already as well, but a former basketball guy. So, Coach, we talked about it, Trevor Gooseby. He told me that, hey, I actually ran some basketball last year. I had to give it up this year to focus on my weight because I want to stay around 300 pounds going into the season. So last year, his first game, he dropped 20. He was like, yeah, I'm pretty good. So, but yeah.
I tell you what, they got 2 big tackles on that team.
Yeah.
Golly, they got 2 bookends.
They're going to have some.
This is the first film I've seen on him, but I was expecting to see a little more of a waist bender. He's tall, 6'7", so even if he's really, getting his hips down like he should, he's still going to look like a waist bender somewhat. But he looks really good to me. I'm with you, CJ. That's exactly what a blue chip offensive lineman should look like. That's a 5-star guy right there. Look at that. I mean, he doesn't. You look at some guys, and we used to say they look like they're running in ski boots. You know how you walk in ski boots, kalunk. That guy, he looks light on his feet.
Yeah.
That's as good a looking kid as I've seen.
Basketball background. And funny talking to him. So I talked to him briefly after his visit down in Austin, went down there. I wanted to see him again today, obviously. Said he wants to be or going to radiology or biology, one of the two. He said, that's kind of what I see myself doing at the next level. So we'll see. But really talented prospect. Said he wants to see a little bit more of Miami, LSU, and Ole Miss. So a lot of schools interested, especially in the SEC. I would envision this to be a Texas A&M, Oklahoma battle when it all comes down to it.
Yep. Good stuff there, CJ. Appreciate your hard work, and also appreciate the hard work of Matthew behind the scenes. Give it up for him, guys. He's the real MVP. We appreciate him each and every time back there twisting and tweaking the dials. Thank you as well to our sponsors. Thank you to Von Lane, vonlane.com. Remember to use that code OTF25. You'll get $20 off your first trip with Von Lane. Thank you to Flat Creek, flatcreekestate.com. Thank you to South Point Dodge, southpointdodge.com as well. Coach, appreciate all of your knowledge and expertise and wisdom. CJ, like I said, appreciate all of your hard work as well. Thank you guys for all the questions and participation. If we missed any of your questions or comments, please direct them to the guys at Coffee and Football tomorrow. Jerry and Bobby will be there bright and early at 8:15. And if you want to join us for the live stream tomorrow, to be around 1:15 p.m. That live stream with myself. I believe Jeff's going to be on there along with Jerry as well on tomorrow's Friday live stream. So thank you guys for joining us. For Coach and for CJ and for Matthew and for all of our fantastic sponsors, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.